19 minutes of questions.
Here, 19 minutes, yeah. So I see Senator Rosen's here. She'll want you to be briefer than.
Yeah, it'll be a little more brief than that. Thank you both. Thanks for the information and the background on it. I apologize. I've had to run in and out through this hearing as well. You gave a stat earlier that I want to be able to drill down a little bit on it. You gave a stat that one of the business organizations said they spend 30 to 50% of their time not on security, but on compliance. So let's drill down on that a little bit. Do they give you information, or do you have a sense of what that compliance is that could not be done so they could spend more time on security?
Absolutely, Senator, and thanks very much for that question. So that 30 to 50% number is for chief information security officers in their time. That was in response to our RFI last year. More recent testimony, actually, that was given in April before the Committee on Homeland Security said that when you look at the CISO's team's time, sometimes it's up to 70%. So 70% of the human capital that, in this case, this is the financial services sector that had done this survey, 70% of their team's time were spent on compliance activities. And the concern that I think we have is not that there shouldn't be requirements. There absolutely must be. The financial services system, for instance, is absolutely vital to our economy, to our national security. However, when you have time spent on developing reports, on responding to examiners' questions, not in a standardized, harmonized way, that is a challenge. And a further challenge is if another regulator then comes in after you have just finished an examination with the first, the second regulator comes in and says, hey, yes, you have all of these reports that you've developed for the first, but we have a different opinion with respect to risk. And the chairman had asked earlier about why cybersecurity is particularly amenable to harmonization. And the reason is the risk that we're talking about here is the same. It is the same information systems. So that's really one of the challenges that we see out there and why we believe the approach here is so important.
So what is the right percentage of time you think to be able to do compliance? Because they're going to have to do some, you're right, but 70% is clearly not the right number on this to try to get it down to that level. It's going to be just a ballpark. I get that.
Yeah, I am not. I'm more of a cybersecurity guy, Senator, than a compliance guy. But I'd be happy to take that back and get some sense. But 70% is not correct.
It's not correct. I would tell you, I met with some folks that were in rural healthcare yesterday, in nursing homes and skilled nursing. They're frustrated because their compliance requirements continue to go up. They're adding additional nurses, not to see patients, but to fill out forms that are now being requested by CMS. It's the same issue here. They don't have the same issue of multiple regulators. They just have increased amount of compliance to be able to fill out forms. And when you take nurses away from patients to be able to fill out forms, you've got more forms but not more care. We have the same situation, my fear is, in that I know we have duplication, but we also have increased requirements to be able to do some of these completed forms to be able to turn in for someone to be able to put in a drawer so that later if there's a problem, they can show, yes, here's your problem, you didn't fill out this form correctly, rather than helping them with compliance. That's my perspective on that, but that's one I'll be able to push on. I need to ask, though, why OMB doesn't already have the authority to do this. So obviously there's a lot of authority that OMB has to be able to coordinate against all agencies. What is unique about this legislation that gives authority that OMB doesn't have right now?
Senator, thanks very much for that question. And I will say a couple of things. First of all, we are lockstep with OIRA, the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs at OMB. We work very closely with them. Part of the challenge that they have is they do not have a gold standard that they can point to when it comes to executive branch regulators and say, this is not harmonized with something, right? The challenge right now is you can come to a regulator and say, this doesn't look like other regulations, but there isn't a policy that says this is what good baseline cybersecurity requirements cross-sectorally for enterprise IT looks like. That's part of what we're trying to solve. The other challenge, though, is the independent regulatory commissions, which we do not have the authority, neither OMB nor the Office of the National Cyber Director, to bring to the table to help design that framework. And from our standpoint, it needs to be an inclusive process. We need to hear from everyone in order to design something effectively. And that is something that, from the administration's perspective, not just ONCD's, the administration supports the approach that Chairman Peters has laid out.
Okay. I'm going to defer the time and actually be done earlier rather than later. That's shocking. I know for everybody, I know for everyone shocking on this, but Chairman Peters, this is an area we need to work on the independent agencies, not just in this area, but in a broader area. My perspective, and I'm not going to force GAO to be able to make a comment about this. My perspective on this, there are independent agencies that feel like they're independent from everybody. They're not independent from everybody. They still need additional oversight. They still need to be able to go through the OIRA review. There's still some boundaries that need to be there when they're creating new regs, that they're not a completely independent fourth branch of government, that they do need to have some kind of oversight. So this is something I think we need to look at not only in this area, but in a broader area in the days ahead and the authority that this committee has.